So yesterday I made a video about Tyson Fury and his next fight, which is said to be Derek Chisora. It seems all but confirmed at this point that Tyson Fury will be taking on Chisora on the 3rd of December in Tottenham in London. And now today we have this article from Boxing Scene titled Anthony Joshua Ring Return Now Looming for Early 2023. This isn't a particularly long article, but as always, I'll leave it linked in the description box in case you want to check out for yourself. It basically rehashes and goes over stuff we already know about how Joshua and his team were basically targeting a comeback for December 17th in London against Otto Wallin or Chris Arreola. They seem to be the most commonly mentioned names. And yeah, it goes over that stuff we already know about it. It's made headlines before. The only thing I want to bring up is something that I feel is potentially a little bit concerning, and that is the fact that Joshua isn't going to be having a run out before the end of 2022. And the reason why I bring that up is because Joshua in his career is in a very tenuous position right now. It's really hanging in the balance following the 2 defeats to Alexander Usyk, and of course the post-fight events following the second fight of Usyk. Joshua had his little breakdown, his little wobble in the ring, which was a clear indication that his head is not where it should be. It's not where it needs to be if he hopes to be a big player in the heavyweight division. And it's clear that Joshua is now on the road to redemption. He has to rebuild himself. And one of the issues that Joshua had, like many fighters, was, and this is when he was champion, it was that he was pretty much reduced to fighting twice a year at most. And now I say that is common because it is. If you look at most champions, most unified champions, when they get to that stage where they have multiple belts, they become such big commodities that I guess there's only so much time that they have to fight in a year. Now, there are some exceptions to that. For example, Canelo Alvarez, who it seems like Canelo Alvarez is fighting every 4 months. Like, you have to give this guy credit because he's fighting good guys. He's bouncing between weight classes, seems to be balancing all these different plates, and he fights often. But for the most part, Joshua, like many other unified champions, doesn't fight that often. Whereas now he doesn't have the responsibilities of unified champion. So he needs to prioritize his development. He can take these easier fights to get his confidence back, to work on things technically, to get some momentum that was going to put him in good stead if/when he returns to the top of the division and fights the likes of Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder, maybe if he fights Alexander Usyk again, or whoever else, all the top level guys at heavyweight. So if this sets the tone, I don't think it looks good, because in an ideal world, you'd like to see Joshua return before the end of 2022, because you can understand before, okay, you're a unified champion, you're only going to fight so many times because fights take so long to get made, because contracts, you're dealing with stupid sums of money. You have to make sure the I's are dotted and the T's are topped. So these fights, they take so long to get made. And of course, you have to honour mandatories and stuff like that. And I still don't understand when people make out as if Joshua just had some easy run as a champion, and that he's some manufactured product and there was never any substance. That is just absolute nonsense. Joshua, even following his 2 losses to Alexander Usyk, still has one of the best resumes in the division. But people like to reduce it to Joshua was just fed these old men, the fighters, the heavyweights of yesterday who were in their late 30s, early 40s. That's who Joshua got. That's who Joshua beat for his titles. It's just absolute nonsense. Joshua was fighting good guys pretty much from when he fought Dylan White. And yeah, some opponents were better than others. You know, you had Charles Martins, Dominic Brazils. But earlier this year, Charles Martin was a good enough opponent for Luis Ortiz. People weren't complaining about that. Dominic Breazeale was a good enough opponent for Deontay Wilder back in 2019. But Joshua was fighting these guys back in 2016 when they were unbeaten. And then, of course, from there, he fought Eric Molina, Klitschko, so on and so forth. You know the rest. But the point is, Joshua was fighting good guys when he was a title belt holder. But then with that responsibility, obviously, comes mandatories. And as I say, his mandatories were good level fighters. But it's not just the fighter you're preparing to fight, but you're potentially also fighting the effects of ring rust, inactivity, fighting once every 6 months. It has an effect. And now there's a balance between fighting too often and fighting not often enough. But this is the time, I think, where Joshua, he's prioritizing his development. It's not necessarily about titles right now. It's not about pay-per-views right now and selling out big arenas. It's about recovery. It's about not only getting to where you were before, but rebuilding your foundation so you can go even further than that. So you're not stagnating. So you're not just hitting a brick wall and then losing and then having to fall back again. So maybe Joshua and his team share these concerns, and maybe they really hope they could get out before the end of the year. But what the point I'm trying to get across is, I hope that this doesn't become a pattern where, even though Joshua isn't a champion anymore, he's still fighting with the frequency as if he was a champion, only twice a year tops. And like when it comes to the opponents, I know people aren't happy with Chris Arreola and Otto Wallin, but as I've said, I don't have an issue with these fights because you have to put them into context. These aren't title defenses. These aren't cherry picks. They're development fights. So yeah, they may be hand-picked, but it's because Joshua, if you look at the context of it, he's coming off of 2 back-to-back defeats against the Alexander Usyk, who's seen as at least the number 2 heavyweight. And he's already a generational fighter because he was maybe even number 1 cruiserweight of all time. So losing to him is not really much of a disgrace. But development fights like this are needed. And yeah, look, from a fan's perspective, they aren't really what we want to see. But you have to see it in the grand scheme of things. Think of putting your manager's hat on rather than your fan's hat on. What does Joshua need right now? He needs activity. He needs chances to work things out technically, get some momentum, get some confidence, rebuild himself. And that has to be done against fighters like Chris Arreola and then Otto Wallin, maybe Dylan White, just maybe, depending on how Dylan White looks against Jermaine Franklin. And it's all about context, because I know some people are going to be putting in the comments, oh, how can you allow this, you Joshua fanboy? You just want to see Joshua knock over some poor soul just because you're such a fanboy. No, that's not the case. It's about understanding how to get the best out of fighters. If you're a true boxing fan, you want to see the best fighters fight the other best fighters when they're at their best. And to do that, sometimes they have to take development fights. Sometimes they have to take easier touches so they can get back to 100% or close to it and be competitive and be entertaining. And if that requires going in against someone the level of a Chris Arreola, in this case, so be it. But then there's, of course, the issue of how frequently will that be? Because if Joshua isn't fighting until, I don't know, February or March 2023, he's already had several months out of the ring, several months where he could have been working on things. He could have taken an easier opponent. So, yeah, just my thoughts on this. I think it is, it's not a good look. Maybe this is just a one-off. Maybe it's just because they really can't get anyone in the ring with Joshua. I think that's unlikely, but maybe they feel the urgency as well. And there is also a thing at the bottom where, a little line where it says Joshua's been training in Loughborough under Angel Fernandez. And it says, although future plans of working with Robert Garcia, who would join the team for the Usyk rematch, are unclear. Yeah, another thing that's not a good look. I think there have been enough situations now where Angel Fernandez, it's been proven that he can only do so much with Joshua. Robert Garcia might not be the exact perfect fit for Joshua, but he's at least more experienced than Fernandez. He's seen more. He's done more in boxing, and that's not it's not a dig at Angel Fernandez. It's just the truth. Joshua needs experience right now because that's one thing that he lacks. You know, he's had loads of title fights, but there's always been an air of inexperience that's kind of been his undoing. So he needs experienced people around him. He needs guidance. And if he doesn't work with Robert Garcia and just works solely with Fernandez, I think that'd be a big mistake. And it doesn't mean he has to work exclusively with Robert Garcia. He could look to take on a more experienced trainer than Garcia. Not that there are many, but it's probably best that he stays with Garcia because at least he's had a camp with him already. There's a little bit of continuity going into his next fight, but we'll find out when that next fight is. So let me know what you think in the comment section below. Do you, like me, think that this potentially could be a problem if Joshua, in his development stage, is still only fighting twice a year? Yeah, I don't think that's a good look. But yeah, leave it down below. Let me know what you think. I'll get back to you. But for now, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you in the next video.